Hi, my name is Professor Jennifer Nazarino, and I teach a course called Global Dynamics and Immigrant Entrepreneurship in the United States. My class has created podcasts on immigrant entrepreneurs, and you'll be listening to the challenges, successes, as well as structural conditions and contextual factors that have led immigrants to start their businesses both in Rhode Island and around the country. Immigrants own over a quarter of newly owned established businesses, despite accounting for less than 15% of the total population here in the United States. Moreover, 45% of immigrant businesses are owned and operated by women. The students provide a deep dive and intimate look into the lives of immigrant entrepreneurs. Hope you enjoy it.
My name is Bridget, and I'm a senior in Brown University's Immigrant Entrepreneurship class. Today I'm sitting down and talking with Yalitza Jean Charles, a first-generation Haitian American who is the founder of Healthy Roots Dolls, a company that creates dolls and storybooks that showcase Black girls with natural hair, which also happens to be the first line of natural hair dolls in the toy industry. So your business obviously is amazing, Healthy Roots Dolls, and I saw your story a bit, but could you kind of tell me why you decided to create it?
Yeah, so I don't know if people know this, but I'm Black, and I grew up in the United States, and growing up in the United States as a Black girl, I didn't really see, well, at least for me, I hope it's different for the girls that come after me, but at least for me, I didn't see a lot of women that look like me being represented as beautiful in media. Even within my own family, the idea of beauty was usually centered around Eurocentric standards of beauty, having light skin, having long hair, having a certain texture of hair. And so when I was little, I also didn't have a lot of toys that represented girls that looked like me. And my idea of what was beautiful was based on that blonde, blue-eyed Barbie doll. And so when I got to college, I started having conversations with my peers, and we talked about the impact that representation has on children and how toys can be learning tools and impacts how kids think, act, and see themselves. And I realized, I realized how ridiculous it was that I didn't know how to do my hair until I was 20, and the fact that, children of color are the majority of children, and they don't have products that positively represent them. And so I started talking about race in my work. I also have a concentration in gender, race, and sexuality. And so my work started to talk about Black female identity and womanism. And I ultimately wanted to go into children's media to create the diversity that I didn't see in my own childhood. And one of my projects was to redesign a fairy tale character, Rapunzel. And I turned her into a little brown girl with kinky curly hair because I wanted little brown girls with kinky curly hair to feel like they can be princesses too. And people thought it was a doll, and they saw an opportunity to turn it into a line of dolls, and so did I. So I applied for the Brown University Social Innovation Fellowship, and I got in. They gave me $4,000 to work on the project during the summer. They taught me all about entrepreneurship and gave me access to mentors to help me build out my business model and figure out how to turn this project into a business. And I got into the Mass Challenge Accelerator program. And from there, I launched a Kickstarter campaign, raised over $50,000 in sales of our product that didn't exist yet, but people believed in it. And the rest is history.
So what makes Healthy Roots Dolls unique?
The whole intention of Healthy Roots is to create dolls that represent the diversity of the African diaspora and with the features of children of color, like Black children, in a way that other brands do not, because a lot of other companies will just use the same mold and paint it a different color. And that's not how you represent children of color. And so we wanted to show features that aren't often celebrated or recognized as beautiful. So having full lips, having a full nose, a wide nose, and all that cute stuff in one product. And then the texture of hair that often doesn't get celebrated either.
And can you walk me through your business model?
So at first I always talked about we just have this doll, but it's what about our product makes it unique and the value prop that we create for customers and consumers? So the fact that we saw the products that currently exist in the market, and we did research and we talked to consumers about what they were looking for and what they were missing in their shopping experience when it comes to purchasing toys for their kids, and realizing that you have to do more than paint a doll brown in order to connect with children of color. You have to create value beyond that. And that's what we did. We created an educational experience centering hair care with a doll that girls can style the doll's hair just like their own and learn natural hair care step by step with an added book that has illustrations and instructions on how to care for your hair. And so figuring out how to turn that into a business. So you have to figure out your costs, your your production costs, your margin, and then your customer acquisition costs, and then your fulfillment costs, and all these different numbers that help you figure out, like, is this going to be a sustainable business that's able to grow over time? And is this a product that people actually want, and how are we going to get them to buy it?
And so, could you talk to me more about how the process of trying to secure funding and what hurdles you faced as a young Black businesswoman? Obviously, women get less than 2% of venture capital funding, and the stats for Black women are so much lower than that. So could you maybe walk me through your process, challenges you faced, and obviously you did have success, and go into that too.
So in 2015, when I first started, the idea of pursuing funding wasn't even on my mind because I wasn't even aware of it. Like, people ask people to give them money to run businesses. What? That wasn't my space. That wasn't my mindset. Because it wasn't my mindset. And even if it was, I would already know that people wouldn't give me money because people don't give Black people money. Like, I don't need to start asking around and learn about this space to know that that's not going to happen. Because I know that it's difficult for Black businesses to get bank loans, and it's difficult for Black people to get credit or just accumulate any type of, generational wealth in any way. So I knew that wasn't an option, which is why I was like, I'm just going to do a Kickstarter campaign. And some people laughed, and I was like, that's fine. That's okay. Like, I'm going to do it anyways. But I was really confident because I knew that I had a product that people wanted and needed. And it was more about the need. I think that was my biggest thing, is like that drove my passion and like the pitches, and when I was communicating to people, when I'm pursuing funding opportunities, is like the difference between a lot of businesses and my own is like, especially like that were coming out of Brown and RISD, like I look at all the people that were around and the fact that I'm still standing, and it's because I created something that people actually need. And not because I just wanted it. It's not I thought people needed it and then I just made it. I asked first and then I made it, which is a big difference. There's a lot of people are just creating things and they think people will come, and that's not how it always works. And so I was able to pursue alternative types of funding outside of VC in the form of grants and pitch competitions. So really like building it up myself. I have gotten some VC funding, but I actually wrote this Medium article where I talked about how I stopped chasing money because I would meet with investors who I thought were good fits. Because that's one of the other things, like when you're talking to VCs and investors and angel investors, the first thing you need to do is find somebody who's a fit for you. Like for me, it wouldn't make any sense to talk to a VC who only invests in like tech and SaaS because they're not familiar with physical product. They're not interested in CPG. They're not interested in beauty. They're not, that's not their space. They're not going to have the connections or it's less likely that they'll be able to be a strategic investor. And so I had to be more strategic in who I was talking to. So I would go for people who had invested in potentially like beauty brands or hair care products or physical product companies or are interested in children's toys and education. And even then when I was having conversations with them, the expectations and the asks of me were a lot. So asking me for all these numbers and CAs, like I just needed to present a lot of information that I didn't necessarily have yet, but that I also knew that they didn't ask other people for. Fundraising is really hard. And I'm not going to say that it's easier for some people than others. It's hard for everybody. Like not a lot of companies raise capital. It's very few companies that actually raise capital. But there are times when you hear these stories where it's like, yeah, I went into the meeting, I didn't have a pitch deck, I just told them my idea and they wrote me $1 million check. So it's like, I know that happens, and it's a little frustrating when the expectations of you are much higher, but that's fine. So I stopped having conversations with people and I stopped like pursuing capital, and I just decided to focus on my business, and the money came. So I just focused on building my business, and I got into a couple accelerator programs in 2018. One was focused on CPG companies, so I was focused on learning marketing and customer acquisition. And then I went to a bunch of pitch competitions, and I won everything I was in 2018. And I used that money to further grow my company and make hires, and got some angel investment, gotten some VC investment, and an accelerator investment. So yeah, that's my fundraising story.
That's amazing. And so who was donating to your Kickstarter campaign? How did you kind of market it? Because that was your first source of funding. Was it family? Was it just people who were invested in the product that you heard about it on social media?
So the first thing I will say is that I don't call backing Kickstarter campaigns a donation. And I always recommend people not to call it that. Because in my Kickstarter campaign, I wasn't asking people to give me money. That's the other thing. Like, I'm never asking people to give me money. Donations are money. What our Kickstarter was asking for was people to purchase a pre-order of our items, and that we would later fulfill. And so that's the other big thing is like that. And I feel like why Kickstarter was successful is because people were getting something in return for the money that they gave. They were supporting the company and making the product come to life. And so in terms of like friends and family, yeah, a couple of my friends and family back to Kickstarter, but I'm not marketing to my friends and family because they're not my consumers. My friends and family don't have any kids. Not all of them are looking to buy black dolls. They were able to amplify it, but I think that's one of the other struggles is like a lot of people expect their friends and family to purchase their products when their friends and family aren't even necessarily their target customer.
Yeah, and you're right. Thank you for correcting my terminology, because even if you were asking for money, that's not a donation, that's an investment in the company. Yeah. But I think the way that you actually had the Kickstarter campaign pre-orders was very, very strategic and smart.
Yeah, whenever I see, I've had people over the years ask me about Kickstarter, I'm like, you have to give people something. At every tier of money that they back, they have to get something in return. Even if it's a thank you letter or a postcard, just give them something.
Yeah, that makes sense and really builds your brand and your customer base. I would say probably my last question is, as a successful Black businesswoman, what advice would you give to other Black women entrepreneurs trying to start businesses?
So my advice is always going to be make sure you're creating something that people need and want, not necessarily something that you think people want. Ask all the right questions up front before pursuing investing in your time and energy in creating a product or bringing something to market that might not get adopted. My second thing is don't say no before you can say yes. If you're going to pursue an opportunity, pursue it through every possible angle, and make sure you're asking the right questions. And then what's my other... You are your best investment, so use your time wisely and I wouldn't give it so sparingly. I think that's another thing, particularly for Black women, is we often are burdened with the labor of caring for others and doing work for others and not caring for ourselves to the same degree. And I think one thing that I learned, this is going to be a little radical, but one thing I learned from my white peers is to put myself first. Every time.
Thank you so much for talking to me. This was amazing. I'm so glad I was connected to you and could hear about your story.
Thank you for reaching out.